Tonight, YCN News brings you this special and extended coverage of the announcement just last Thursday by Department of Resources and Economic Development Commissioner Jeffrey Rose of his final decision on the West Bowl expansion over at Mount Sunapee Resort and their latest 5-year plan. Now, the West Bowl expansion has been one of our biggest stories of 2015, and YCN has been covering it since 2013. Now, the major focus is the controversial West Bowl expansion of Mount Sunapee Resort, which has garnered both overwhelming support and opposition from state officials, mountain representatives, and residents. Now, last Thursday morning at the Newbury town offices, the DRED commissioner presented his final plan for that very expansion. It is now set to go in front of the Governor's Council this Wednesday, March 23rd. Now, some parts do have to be approved by the council. Now, Commissioner Rose's plan sets up guidelines and logistics for the expansion. In this next half hour, we will hear the commissioner's complete presentation, then have reaction from proponents and opponents alike. We'll hear from Gary Stansfield from the Friends of Mount Sunapee, Frank McConnell, a local businessman, Jack Savage from the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests, and finally, Jay Gamble, who is the Vice President of Mount Sunapee Resort. Let's now hear from Commissioner Jeffrey Rose.
What I'd like to do is just take a few minutes and sort of read through. We've, I think, all been on quite a journey here over the last 20 months together, and I'm pleased that we're able to sort of announce our final decision with regarding the Mount Sunapee revised master development plan that we've all been working on. And so I'll read through a statement, and then we can have some discussion, and we'll provide some additional materials for the members of the committee. After an extensive, deliberate, and transparent process, I'm pleased to announce my approval of the Mount Sunapee Resort's revised Master Development Plan, RMDP, Environmental Management Plan, EMP. The RMDP reflects updates to the original MDP EMP, which was submitted to the agency in June of 2014. I hereby approve all of the elements contained within the 2016 to 2020 RMDP EMP, except for the mountain coaster, which is neither approved nor denied at this time. In April 2015, I released my draft decision. A second public hearing and comment period was held, seeking feedback to the draft decision. I was pleased to have received approximately 750 comments from over 675 people, plus petitions. After careful review of all of these comments, I worked closely with my team and the operator to further refine my decision. Today's final decision reflects lots of inputs, careful considerations, and a balanced approach for the future of Mount Sunapee ski area and Mount Sunapee State Park. Before outlining the changes to the final decision, it's important to refresh some of the key components of the draft decision. Rejected the mixed ownership model between public and private lands. Required all 150 acres associated with the recreational facilities in the West Bowl to be transferred to the state. Required an additional donation of 260 acres of conservation lands, an additional 10-year renewal of the lease option, realignment of 2 proposed ski trails outside the exemplary community known as Polygon D, funding for research plots within Polygon D, permanent protection of the East Bowl, no private development within the West Bowl lands being transferred to the state, safeguards outlined if Goshen were to change or provide a variance to its zoning within its recreation district. West Bowl expansion must accommodate year-round hiking on the Summit Trail, and conditional approval of the mountain coaster, and local, state, federal permits are required for the project to proceed. While the foundation of the plan remains largely intact, there are several substantive changes that have been made to the RMDP EMP based largely on public comments. Further reductions within the exemplary natural community. Building off the Natural Heritage Bureau reports, dozens of comments from the public, and the agency's commitment to minimizing impacts within the 16-acre ENC known as Polygon D, the final decision eliminates all ski trails within Polygon D, including under the chairlift. This will remove the need for snowmaking equipment within the ENC and allows the lift corridor to be narrowed approximately 50 to 60 feet. By eliminating the trails within Polygon D, the total direct impact is reduced to 4.2 acres, as proposed in the original MDP to 1.1 acre. This marks a 74% reduction within the impacts of Polygon D from the original MDP. Further, in an effort to minimize the soil disturbance within Polygon D, no stumping of trees will occur. Tree cuts in Polygon D for the chairlift will be flush cut to ground level, and no heavy equipment will be allowed to grade the terrain. Additionally, no blasting shall occur within Polygon D for the construction of the chairlift tower foundations. The chairlift foundations will be excavated by hand and drilled and pinned to the bedrock. Environmental research studies. In the draft decision, I called for funding for research plots to help analyze impacts within the ENC. Upon further discussion with the Natural Heritage Bureau, it was determined that an ecological assessment study will provide a greater benefit. In the final RMDP, Mount Sunapee Resort shall provide up to $40,000 for this ecological study. The ecological assessment will be a higher value to the Department of Resources and Economic Development and to the public, as it will update our knowledge of the conditions of the upland forest system found at Mount Sunapee State Park, as well as other similar forest types throughout the state. The tool will be objective and science-based and assist in evaluating the integrity of a natural community, similar to an assessment tool used in evaluating wetlands. Conservation lands. Several questions were raised as to the timing of the land transfers, particularly around the conservation lands. Upon further consideration, all the conservation lands, approximately 260 acres, designated to be transferred to DRED will occur prior to any construction taking place on the West Bowl expansion. This includes the 208 acres of the O'Connell track, plus 52 acres of the Powell track. These conservation lands shall become part of Mount Sunapee State Park. However, they will not become part of the land within the ski lease boundary. Also, at the time of transfer to the state, there shall be a deed restriction placed upon the 52-acre Powell track to protect against any future development or incorporation into the ski area. These lands will only be transferred to DRED if the Mount Sunapee Resort receives all the necessary permits and approvals from the state, federal, and local authorities with jurisdiction over the West Bowl expansion. I am also pleased to report that in the fall of 2015, scientists from the Ecosystem Management Consultants and Normando Associates conducted an ecological assessment of the conservation lands being transferred to DRED. Based on these reports, which have been preliminarily reviewed by the Natural Heritage Bureau, we anticipate that between 70 and 90 acres are worthy of being designated a part of the the exemplary natural community. The transferring of the conservation lands to the state shall provide permanent protection and further enhance the overall mosaic of the ENC through the Mount Sunapee-Pillsbury region. Hiking trails. Maintaining four-season hiking on the Summit Trail is a priority. To codify this commitment, DRED, Mount Sunapee Resort, and the Sunapee-Ragged-Kearsarge Greenway Coalition will enter into a cooperative maintenance agreement with DRED and the Sunapee-Ragged-Kearsarge Greenway Coalition. This agreement will protect and maintain the designated trails within the leased boundary. In addition to protecting and maintaining the safety and stewardship of the trails, Mount Sunapee Resort will provide annual spring maintenance of the Summit Trail. I am also pleased that with the reconfiguration of the West Bowl skiing trails in the final decision, the number of trail crossings has been reduced from 6 to 3, and the Summit Trail shall remain undisturbed in its current configuration. Relationship between the public lands and the privately owned abutting lands. It is acknowledged and agreed that the residential and commercial real estate development on private land abutting the West Bowl expansion is not permitted within the Goshen Recreation District. However, it is recognized that a local decision could be made to change the zoning ordinances, or a variance could be granted. As such, DRED has strengthened the safety measures outlining the relationship between the public and private lands. DRED shall require ski slopes be set back at least 50 feet inside the state park boundary. It's 20 feet in the draft decision. In addition, the Mount Sunapee Resort is prohibited from developing, maintaining, or operating any trails or paths from the ski slopes to the state park land to adjacent private land, unless those trails are accessible for use by the public. The primary and adjacent residents and facilities to the ski slopes shall be through access points shared with the public. Owners and visitors shall not be granted any rights to use the recreational facilities on public land that are not also enjoyed by the public. Mountain coaster. While preliminary approval of the mountain coaster was contained within the draft decision, it is neither approved nor denied in the final decision. The 2016-2020 RMDP is truly about the West Bowl expansion. That was the focus of the public comments and the focus of our collective attention throughout the deliberative process. Mount Sunapee Resort is welcome to bring the mountain coaster project forward for consideration in future MDP submittals. Letter of approval with conditions. I have explicitly approved the plans outlined within the RMDP, except for the mountain coaster. However, I have also brought forward a conditions letter outlining 23 specific provisions that shall govern the RMDP approval. This conditions letter is signed by each of the relevant parties to codify the terms of these conditions. The conditions are established to acknowledge certain truths, certain requirements, and certain protections for the parties' interests. This agreement, which accompanies the approval of the RMDP, is intended to clarify relationships between all parties and avoid ambiguity that can often lead to counterproductive situations. Other items of interest. While not formally part of the RMDP or conditions letter, I will revise the membership of the Mount Sunapee Advisory Committee by adding a member from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. This will be done by updating the public involvement and oversight policy for the Mount Sunapee ski area. The New Hampshire DOT will bring a valuable perspective to the planning and review process of this important advisory committee. At the Mount Sunapee Advisory Committee annual operating plan meeting, there shall be a standing item on the agenda for an update regarding the hiking trails within the leased boundary. This report will be an opportunity for DRED, Mount Sunapee Resort, and the Sunapee Ragged Kearsarge Greenway Coalition to provide an overview of its annual work plan for the trails. Economic benefit and lease of the lease and proposed West Bowl expansion. The 18-year partnership between Mount Sunapee Resort and the state has been successful in many ways. Mount Sunapee has invested $21 million for capital improvements on the mountain since 1998. The skier experience has been significantly improved, and today the number of skiers has doubled since it was operated by the state. DRED has benefited from nearly $8.5 million in lease payments. These payments have supported extensive capital upgrades at Cannon Mountain. As a result, Cannon has increased its skier visits, enhanced its financial position, and provided critical revenue to help support the financial health of the entire state park system. The towns of Newberry and Goshen also benefit. Prior to the lease, the towns did not receive any tax revenue from the operations at Mount Sunapee State Park. But since the lease went into effect in 1998, the town of Newberry has received approximately $2.3 million in tax revenue, and Goshen has received approximately $275,000. Outlined in the draft decision, the state, DRED, and the towns of Goshen and Newberry will receive additional financial benefits from the West Bowl expansion. Based on an economic analysis, the town of Goshen could receive an increase in property tax revenue of around $90,000. The town of Newberry could see an increase in the property tax revenue of nearly $11,000. The state of New Hampshire could receive an increase in tax revenue of approximately $150,000, and the Department of Resources and Economic Development anticipates an increase in lease payments of nearly $150,000. In addition, the West Bowl expansion will result in additional employment and economic activity in the region. Closing summary. As I've stated before, Mount Sunapee is truly a special place. Mount Sunapee State Park has a rich history that offers a wide variety of recreational opportunities, of which alpine skiing has been a major part. The concept of expanding Mount Sunapee ski area is well established. From Governor Wesley Powell's vision in the early 1960s to the requirement for expansion plans within the state's request for proposal in 1998. Mount Sunapee State Park has evolved as a competitive ski area, providing public recreation, enhancing travel and tourism, and being an economic stimulus for the region. This revised MDP-EMP represents a balanced and responsible project that respects the natural resources, enhances the recreational experiences for the public, brings strong economic benefits to the region and state, promotes travel and tourism, and further solidifies the strength of our state parks system. The ability to bring recreation, conservation, and economic promotion is one of the defining attributes of the Department of Resources and Economic Development and our state. I am pleased to approve the revised 2016-2020 MDP-EMP. However, as part of this process, there are components of this plan that require the approval of the Governor and Executive Council. I have submitted an item for consideration at the March 23rd, 2016 Governor and Council meeting. This requested action is in the form of a lease amendment, which is necessary for the West Bowl expansion project to proceed. I know the Governor and Executive Council will be reviewing the documents in the days ahead, and I look forward to sharing the details of the plan and answering any questions that they may have. I am confident after their review, they too will agree with the strength of the West Bowl expansion plan and how it benefits the state, the towns, the public, the environment, and the economy. The management of public lands needs to be open, transparent, and holistic. The benefit of any one project needs to be evaluated from the perspective of how it serves the public good. Today's final decision is a balanced approach to the future of Mount Sunapee State Park, reflecting extensive public input, the history of the park, and careful consideration of the mission of our agency. The revised MDP-EMP will bring great benefit to the Sunapee region and to the state of New Hampshire. Thank you. There will also be sort of a one-page summary of some of the key points within the final MDP. You will also find in there a copy of the lease amendment that will be going forward before the Governor and Council next Wednesday. You will find a copy of the approval letter with the conditions that were outlined, those 23 provisions that I stated. And you will find a comprehensive document that is our response to public comments that we have received through this very extensive process, updating the, I think it was a 32 or 33 page document that we had in the draft decision. And what we have done now is incorporated some additional comments, but also incorporated how we have responded in the proactive fashion to the comments that we received from the public. So I think it is a very thorough document. It has evolved quite a bit through this past 20-month journey that we've all taken. And I know it'll be quite a bit for people to read through, to digest, but I feel as though we have done an effective job of listening. We have received significant public input throughout this entire process. And I think as a result of the inclusive process that we've taken, we have created a better document on behalf of the state of New Hampshire, on behalf of the people of this region, and on behalf of the Mount Sunapee State Park and the Mount Sunapee Resort. And that would not have happened without the engagement of this committee and the engagement from the public, and I think we're all better off for it. And I'm truly excited to be bringing this MDP forward, and I look forward to the next steps in this process. I'm happy if there's any members of the committee that would like to make any comments. I'd be happy to receive or to try to respond to those. But again, you've played a really key part along this journey, and I thank you. I have a binder, 3-ring binder, that I keep at my desk that has all the comments from this committee and many, many from the public, and review it regularly and consistently thought of the inputs in trying to put forward the best plan possible on behalf of the state of New Hampshire.
They make a decision next week, or would the public have time to speak to their representatives before the decision?
It will appear on the agenda for the governor and council. There are specific components of this proposal that require their affirmative action to go forward. And I don't know exactly what the executive council, the governor and executive council will do. I know that there has been some interest expressed in potentially doing some sort of a briefing. I'll provide them these materials, and I'll be happy to stand ready to answer any of their questions as they move forward in their consideration of some of those key components that they explicitly need to approve in order to move forward. So I don't know, you certainly would have the opportunity to reach out to the executive council and to the governor's office to express your thoughts regarding the proposal, but I feel as though that they will have a good amount of information and feel confident that when they review the details behind the proposal that I've outlined today, that they will be comfortable in casting their vote in support of this opportunity.
Our reaction is that the decision leans in the proper direction, but doesn't lean far enough. We're pleased to see reduced impacts to the exemplary natural community that is located in the path of the proposed development. Unfortunately, the plan still allows for the major lift line to cut right through the heart of that community. And that community, as recognized by DRED's own Natural Heritage Bureau, is protected by the New Hampshire Native Plant Protection Act, RSA 217-A. And that act is pretty simple. It says that the state cannot take any actions that jeopardize the future existence of an exemplary natural community. Cutting a lift line through the heart of that community will obviously jeopardize its existence. So that's one of our problems that we have with this plan as presented today. Another problem is that this plan still, although it doesn't directly enable it, well, it does enable it, it facilitates possible private resort development on the abutting land. Mount Sunapee Resort owns private land that abuts the state park on the western slopes of Mount Sunapee. That land right now abuts a state park, an undeveloped part of the state park, and its value, therefore, is relatively low. By allowing this plan, that private land will now abut an active ski area, vastly increasing the value of that land and making it a much more inviting place to build condominiums and slopeside housing. And that's a problem. First of all, it violates the public trust to have public lands being used to facilitate gain for private corporations. That just doesn't work, and it makes you wonder about all of our other state-owned lands. And secondly, a big development in this area will completely change the whole community and the rural nature of this area. You know, our dark skies, our quiet roads, our wildlife, those are all things that are very important to people who live around here, and this development would jeopardize that.
Well, I think it's wonderful. It's been a long time coming. I think that there's the amount of work that Commissioner Rose has done to really provide such a comprehensive plan like this took a very long time. We were wondering if this was going to come to fruition with the time that it took, but to be able to produce a well-balanced plan like he has, and with the cooperation of Mount Sunapee Resort, to work hand in hand with being able to provide really the best expansion program possible considering the economic impact. The environmental impact. I'm just really happy for this, and I'm really looking forward to the March 23rd for the Executive Council to vote on this.
I think many people know that the Forest Society has been involved in protecting Mount Sunapee for over 100 years. We're involved in the original protection in 1911. And to that extent, we have not been in favor of the expansion of the ski area, and so today's decision was disappointing to us. That said, the Commissioner and the committee have worked very hard to take on board lots of suggestions from us and others that we think will help protect some of the exemplary natural communities and the other aspects of the state park up there. Notably, we thought it was important that any new ski area infrastructure be on state park land, not be a private-public partnership in that regard. That the conserved lands that are being put forward as part of this proposal are transferred to the state before the project goes forward, and that we don't create a situation where there's exclusive private access to what's a public facility, the private park. I think it's also significant that they've, to the extent they can, reduced impacts on the exemplary natural community by reducing the number of ski trails and so forth. So they've taken on board suggestions by us and others, and that's a good thing, but ultimately the overall decision is disappointing to us. I'll say one thing, that this quick turnaround of pushing it forward to the Executive Governor and Council in less than a week, given there's a very thick binder, and given that the existing lease has already been the subject of a lawsuit based on misunderstandings and unclear intent, it might be wise to take a little bit more time and make sure that everybody's 100% in agreement on what the lease means and they're comfortable with it, and that most importantly, those executive councilors get an opportunity to hear from their constituents once their constituents have had an opportunity to absorb all of the paperwork.
We're very pleased with the Commissioner's decision. It was an exhaustive process where he took into account many public comments and concerns about the plan. We revised our plan along the way to reflect concerns that were raised, and we believe the Commissioner has found a very balanced approach between conservation, recreation, Mount Sunapee's competitive future, and economic vitality in the Sunapee region.
The Commissioner Rose presented a West Bowl expansion that could move forward if the West Bowl is transferred to state ownership. Some trails are realigned to make way for sensitive habitat, and the resort must donate an additional 260 acres for conservation. Both sides complimented the Commissioner on his thoughtful and deliberative considerations in bringing this proposal forward. Now, but opponents still feel that the expansion dramatically changes the nature of this state park and will have long-term negative implications on other state-owned areas. Now, if approval is completed by the Governor and Council, this plan could not start before 2017 because, as indicated, an environmental study still needs to take place. Concerned members of the community can still express their feelings against or for the expansion by contacting their Governor's Executive Council representative or going to the Governor's office directly. We will post that contact information at the end of this telecast. Now, of course, YCN will continue to follow this story as it develops, as we have been since 2013. Thank you all for watching this YCN News Special. I'm Kurt Weedy. Have a great day, everyone.